Hey there, welcome to our deep dive on Cyclo.
Right.
I know you're pretty into DeFi, always looking for new ways to make that crypto work harder.
Yeah,
So this is going to be right up your alley.
for sure.
We're talking about a protocol that's claiming to offer something pretty unheard of.
Okay.
Liquidation-free leverage on the Flare network.
That's right. And it's not just some theoretical pipe dream.
Yeah.
Cyclo is already live, starting with SFLR, which is essentially a tokenized version of Flare's native FLR token.
Now, you're already pretty familiar with Flare and its whole thing about bringing real-world data onto the blockchain.
Right.
But this Cyclo thing, is it really all it's cracked up to be? I mean, liquidation-free leverage almost sounds too good to be true.
I hear you.
Right.
Leverage trading can be a wild ride, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting here is that Cyclo leverages Flare's unique features to create a system where that risk of sudden liquidation is minimized.
Okay, so how does this magic actually work? Walk me through it.
At the core of it all is SFLR, a leverage token you get when you lock up your SFLR.
Oh.
Think of it like a one-for-one swap based on the dollar value.
Right.
So if you lock up $1,000 worth of SFLR,
Yeah.
you get 1,000 SysFLR.
All right. Seems simple enough so far,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a feeling there's a twist coming.
You bet. The real game changer is the price of SysFLR.
Okay.
It doesn't follow the price of SFLR directly.
Uh-huh.
Instead, it dances between $0 and $1,
Whoa.
depending on how much leverage the market is hungry for at any given moment.
Hold on. So the price of this SysFLR thing is basically a gauge of how much everyone wants to gamble.
It's more sophisticated than just gambling.
Okay.
Think of it as a measure of market sentiment.
Okay.
The higher the demand for leverage, the closer SysFLR climbs towards $1.
Uh-huh.
And if everyone's feeling cautious, well, it dips closer to 0.
So how do I, the average DeFi enthusiast, actually use this system to my advantage? It still sounds a bit like financial alchemy.
It's actually a pretty straightforward process.
Okay.
Our sources break it down into 4 main steps.
All right.
First, you lock your SFLR and mint SysFLR.
Oh,
Think of it like trading in your SFLR for a leveraged version.
gotcha.
Then you sell that SFLR for a stablecoin like USDC.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got liquid cash that you can use for other DeFi adventures, maybe some yield farming or whatever catches your eye.
Okay.
Later, when you're ready,
Yeah.
you buy back SysFLR to unlock your original SFLR.
Wait a minute. Back up. Are you saying I can get my SFLR back even if the price is tanked since I locked it up?
That's the key innovation here, because you're not directly exposed to the price swings of SFLR itself.
Right.
You're playing a different game, betting on whether the demand for leverage will rise or fall.
Okay, color me intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole system relies on SysFLR holding its own, right?
Right.
How can I be sure this token is as reliable as you're making it sound?
That's where Flare's unique features come into play.
Okay.
And this is a big reason why Cyclo chose to launch on this platform specifically. It all hinges on Flare's robust Oracle system,
Right.
particularly the Flare Time Series Oracle, or FTSO for short.
Ah, oracles. The messengers between the real world and the blockchain, right?
Right.
But honestly, the whole oracle thing still makes my head spin a little.
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Oracles are like data bridges that feed real-world information, like asset prices, onto the blockchain,
Right.
which is crucial for smart contracts.
Mm-hmm.
What makes the FTSO on Flare special is that it's decentralized.
Okay.
That means it's not under the control of any single entity,
Uh-huh.
making it much harder for someone to manipulate or mess with the data.
So how does this FTSO give me confidence in Cyclo and this SysFLR token?
The FTSO is responsible for providing the accurate price feeds that determine the minting and value of SysFLR,
Okay.
because it's so decentralized.
Yeah.
The risk of someone exploiting this system or manipulating prices is drastically reduced.
That's reassuring, but what happens if there's some massive market chaos, like a flash crash? Wouldn't that throw a wrench in the whole system?
Well, Flare has another trick up its sleeve called the Permanent Backing Oracle.
Okay.
This feature acts as a safeguard,
Uh-huh.
ensuring long-term stability for SysFLR, even if the market goes haywire.
Okay.
It basically prevents a bank run situation that could happen if an oracle were to temporarily fail.
So even if demand for leverage spiked suddenly, or the oracle has a little hiccup, this permanent backing oracle thing keeps the whole system from falling apart.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's like a safety net built into the system.
Oh, okay.
And don't forget, the FTSO itself is deeply woven into Flare's design.
Yeah.
With about 100 independent data providers constantly feeding it information.
Right.
Talk about redundancy.
All right, I'm starting to see why they chose Flare for this.
Yeah.
Decentralized oracles, backup oracles, and a whole army of data providers, that's a pretty solid foundation, especially when you're dealing with something as potentially volatile as leverage.
Yeah.
But isn't there always some risk?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a risk-free investment,
Right.
especially in the world of DeFi.
Of course.
However, one of the key insights here is that Cyclo is specifically designed to mitigate the most common risk associated with leverage, liquidation.
That's what makes this so compelling, right?
Right.
It's a new way to approach leverage,
Mm-hmm.
one that potentially opens up the playing field for people who might have been too scared to try it before.
Right.
But I do have some questions about potential drawbacks.
Okay.
And I know you're going to walk me through those later.
Absolutely. We'll get to those.
Okay.
But first, let's talk about how you, as someone already invested in Flare,
Yeah.
can actually put Cyclo to work.
Okay.
Remember those FLR rewards you earn through Flare drops and staking?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you lock your SFLR in Cyclo, those rewards keep flowing.
So it's not just about the potential leverage. You're also maximizing your FLR holdings at the same time.
That's right.
That's a clever way to incentivize people to get involved.
It is.
It's almost like a 2-for-1 deal.
It certainly adds another layer of appeal, especially for those who are already bullish on Flare's long-term potential.
Okay, we've covered the basics of how Cyclo works,
Mm-hmm.
the role of those all-important oracles, and even touched on Flare's security features.
Right.
But what does all of this mean in the grand scheme of things?
Right.
Where could the Cyclo thing go from here?
That's where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
Just imagine a world where this type of liquidation-free leverage isn't limited to just SFLR.
Okay.
Our sources suggest that Cyclo has plans to expand to other assets, like Bitcoin and XRP,
Oh, wow.
potentially creating CyBTC and CyXRP with similar properties.
So basically, any asset that can be securely represented on Flare could get the Cyclo treatment.
That seems to be the vision.
Wow.
And if they pull it off,
Yeah.
it could shake up the DeFi landscape as we know it.
Yeah.
Imagine leverage trading evolving from this high-stakes game
Right.
to a more accessible tool for everyone.
Yeah. That would be a serious game changer. It could bring in a whole new wave of users who like the idea of leverage, but have been understandably terrified of the risks.
For sure.
Yeah.
It also begs the question,
What's that?
could Cyclo's approach become the gold standard for leverage in DeFi?
Yeah.
Will we see other platforms scrambling to copy their model?
Yeah.
Or will this remain a unique advantage within the Flare ecosystem?
Now, those are the million-dollar questions.
They are.
This is definitely a development worth watching closely.
I agree.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, right.
For now, let's focus on how this technology can benefit you directly.
Okay.
In the next part of this deep dive, we'll explore some specific use cases for Cyclo.
Right.
And I know you'll walk me through some potential strategies based on my current portfolio and risk appetite.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And then we'll tackle those potential drawbacks too. Right?
Of course.
Got to make sure we're looking at this from all angles.
We'll unpack all of that in part 2.
Sounds good to me. All right, we're back and ready to dive deeper into the world of Cyclo.
Okay.
Last time we got a pretty good handle on how this whole liquidation-free leverage thing actually works.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm already starting to see the potential here. But now I want to get down to brass tacks.
Okay.
How can I, the listener, actually put Cyclo to work in my portfolio?
That's a great question, and it's where things get really exciting because we can start talking about real-world strategies tailored to your specific goals and risk tolerance.
Okay.
Remember, you're already a savvy DeFi player.
Right.
So this is about adding another tool to your arsenal.
Exactly. So let's ditch the hypotheticals and get specific.
Okay.
Get me with some actual use cases. What can I do with this Cyclo thing?
Let's say you're still bullish on Flare. You believe the price of FLR is going up,
Uh-huh.
but you're also a little wary of the market taking a sudden dip.
Right.
You've been burned before.
I'll
Right?
learn that lesson the hard way.
Well, instead of just holding your SFLR and hoping for the best,
Yep.
you could leverage Cyclo to potentially amplify your gains
Okay.
while minimizing your downside risk.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about selling your SUS FLR for USDC?
Uh-huh.
That essentially gives you leveraged exposure to FLR without the nail-biting fear of liquidation.
Oh, okay. I'm following you.
All right.
So if the price of SFLR goes up, the value of my SFLR increases too.
Right.
And I can ride that wave up.
Exactly.
But if things go south, I'm not going to get totally wiped out like I would with traditional leverage.
That's the key difference here.
Okay.
Your SysFLR might lose value,
Mm-hmm.
but you can still buy it back and unlock your SFLR without losing your shirt.
Okay.
It's a much more controlled approach to leverage, which could be a game changer for people who are risk-averse,
Right.
but still want to participate in these potentially high-growth opportunities.
This is making a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also the kind of person who likes to explore multiple strategies.
Okay.
What about using Cyclo in conjunction with other DeFi plays, like yield farming?
Now you're talking. That's where things get really interesting.
All right.
Remember that USDC you get from selling your SYS FLR?
Uh-huh.
You can put that to work in a yield farming protocol on Flare,
Okay.
earning passive income while you wait for the price of SFLR to potentially appreciate.
Okay.
It's like double dipping on potential gains.
Wait, so I could boost my yield farming returns using leverage,
Yes,
but without the usual liquidation risks.
that's right.
This is starting to sound pretty wild.
And it doesn't stop there.
Oh, wow.
That USDC is like a key that unlocks a whole world of possibilities within the Flare ecosystem.
Okay.
You could lend it out,
Uh-huh.
use it to provide liquidity to decentralized exchanges,
Right.
or even explore other DeFi protocols that pique your interest.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is like a whole new dimension of DeFi strategy. But let's zoom out for a second and think bigger picture.
Okay.
What could Cyclo's approach mean for the DeFi landscape as a whole?
Right.
This feels like more than just another protocol.
It definitely has the potential to disrupt the status quo.
Yeah.
If Cyclo gains traction and proves successful,
Right.
it could force traditional leveraged trading platforms to adapt
Mm-hmm.
and offer similar liquidation-free options to stay competitive.
It could also make Flare a much more attractive ecosystem for DeFi users, right?
Sure.
People who are drawn to the idea of safer and more accessible leverage could flock to Flare to take advantage of Cyclo.
Absolutely. And if Cyclo expands to other assets like Bitcoin and XRP, as the sources suggest, it could further accelerate Flare's growth.
Wow.
We could see a surge in demand for CyBTC, CyXRP, and other leveraged tokens, creating a more vibrant and dynamic DeFi ecosystem.
It's like Cyclo is lighting a fire under the DeFi space, pushing the boundaries of what's possible and challenging everyone to rethink how leverage should work in a decentralized world.
That's a great way to put it, and it highlights the incredible pace of innovation in this space.
Yeah.
DeFi is constantly evolving, and protocols like Cyclo are at the forefront of that evolution.
But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
There are always risks, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's crucial to approach this with a balanced perspective.
Right.
While Cyclo is designed to mitigate the risk of liquidation, there are still other factors to consider.
Okay.
And it's important to understand those nuances before you jump in headfirst.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm all ears. What are the potential pitfalls I need to be aware of?
One thing to keep in mind is that the price of SysFLR, as we discussed earlier, is tied to market demand for leverage.
Okay.
If that demand drops significantly,
Yeah.
the price of SysFLR could plummet.
So even though I can't be liquidated in the traditional sense,
Right.
I could still lose money if the market moves against me and the demand for leverage dries up.
Exactly. You're essentially betting on the future demand for leverage. And if your bet is wrong, you could incur losses.
Right.
It might not be as dramatic as getting liquidated,
Yeah.
but it can still sting. It's a different type of risk,
Okay.
one that's more nuanced and perhaps less obvious than traditional liquidation risk.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
It's like a calculated gamble, not just a blind leap of faith.
Right.
What other factors should I be considering?
Well, another risk to keep in mind is the overall health and stability of the Flare ecosystem itself.
Okay.
Remember, Cyclo relies heavily on Flare's oracles and infrastructure.
Right.
If there were to be a major security breach or a systemic failure on Flare, it could potentially impact the functionality of Cyclo. It's all interconnected.
So it's not enough to just understand Cyclo. I need to do my homework on Flare as well.
Precisely. The success of Cyclo is fundamentally tied to the success of Flare.
Okay.
If Flare thrives,
Yeah.
Cyclo is likely to thrive as well.
Makes sense.
But if Flare falters,
Yeah.
Cyclo could be negatively impacted. You have to look at the bigger picture.
Okay. I'm starting to get a more holistic view of the risks and rewards.
Mm-hmm.
Cyclo offers some compelling advantages,
Yeah.
but it's not a magic bullet. It's essential to weigh the risks carefully and make informed decisions.
And that's why these deep dives are so valuable.
Right.
We're giving you the knowledge and insights you need to navigate the world of DeFi with confidence.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our Cyclo deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored some use cases,
hmm
talked about the broader implications, and even delved into some potential risks.
We've given you a lot to chew on,
Yeah.
but there's still more to come in the final part of this episode.
All right.
We'll wrap things up by addressing some of the most frequently asked questions about Cyclo.
Okay.
We'll offer some concluding thoughts and leave you with some food for thought
All right.
as you continue to explore this groundbreaking protocol.
Sounds good to me. Let's move on to the grand finale. All right, we're back for the final stretch of our Cyclo deep dive.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground from the nuts and bolts of how it works to potential strategies and even some of the risks involved.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready to tackle some of those lingering questions
Okay.
I know are swirling around in the listener's head.
That sounds good.
So fire away with those frequently asked questions.
Okay, here's one that comes up a lot.
All right.
What happens if the price of Sysdef LR actually goes all the way down to zero?
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
It's not something we've really discussed yet.
Right.
And I bet it's a major concern for anyone considering using Cyclo.
It's a valid question.
Right.
But the good news is that even in that worst case scenario,
Yeah.
your initial investment is still safe.
Okay.
Remember, SysFLR is ultimately backed by SFLR.
Right.
So even if the price of SysFLR hits rock bottom,
Uh-huh.
you can still unlock your original SFLR.
So it's like a built-in safety net.
Yeah,
I might not make any profit from the leverage, but I also won't lose my initial investment.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's a key difference between Cyclo and traditional leverage trading,
Okay.
where a price drop can wipe out your entire position.
Right.
It's all about managing risk.
Okay. That's reassuring. Mm-hmm. Now let's flip the script.
Okay.
What happens if the price of SysFLR goes to the moon and hits $1?
Well, that's the dream scenario.
Right.
It means demand for leverage is soaring.
Yeah.
And your SysFLR is worth the absolute maximum.
Right.
You've basically hit the jackpot on your leverage play
Uh-huh.
and stand to make a tidy profit when you unlock your SFLR.
So it really is a high-risk, high-reward situation, but with that added layer of protection that we've been talking about.
Cyclo offers a really interesting balance between maximizing potential gains
Mm-hmm.
and minimizing potential losses.
Yeah.
It's a whole new way to approach leverage.
All right, let's get a bit more technical for a second.
Okay.
This one's for the tech-savvy DeFi enthusiasts out there.
All right.
What roles do Flare's State Connector and the F-Asset system play in all of this? I know the listener's pretty familiar with Flare's tech,
Right.
but I'm not sure they fully grasp how these pieces fit into the Cycle puzzle.
Those are both crucial components of Flare's architecture that enable Cyclo to function seamlessly. The state connector is what allows Flare to tap into data from other blockchains, like Ethereum and the XRP ledger.
So it's like a universal translator for blockchains, bringing all that data together in one place.
That's a great way to put it. And the F-Asset system uses that data to create representations of assets from other chains
Okay.
right there on Flare.
Yeah.
That's how SFLR, the wrapped version of FLR, comes into existence.
Ah, so that's why those components are so essential for Cyclo. It needs a reliable and secure way to represent and track the underlying asset,
Right.
like SFLR, to make this whole system work.
Exactly. It all comes back to Flare's ability to connect different blockchain ecosystems and create a user-friendly experience. It's all about interoperability.
Okay, last question, and I know this is on everyone's mind.
Okay.
When are we going to see CyBTC and CyXRP?
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to start leveraging my Bitcoin and XRP holdings.
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Unfortunately, there isn't an official timeline yet for when those assets will be added to Cyclo. It's still early days, and the team is likely focused on making sure the SFLR system is rock solid before expanding to other assets.
That makes sense. Better to be safe than sorry, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're even considering those assets
Yeah.
shows just how ambitious and far-reaching Cyclo could become.
Right.
It could really shake things up.
I'm excited to see what the future holds now before we wrap things up. Are there any final thoughts you want to leave with our listener?
Well, I think Cyclo is a perfect example of how DeFi is constantly evolving and finding new ways to solve old problems.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the power of innovation in this space.
It's like they took the concept of leverage, which has always been a bit of a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
and found a way to make it safer and more accessible for the average person.
That's a great way to put it. Cyclo allows people to participate in the potential upside of leverage without having to worry about getting completely wiped out.
Right.
Could really open up the DeFi space to a whole new audience.
And it really underscores the importance of choosing the right platform. Flare's unique features, like the decentralized oracles and robust security infrastructure, are what make a protocol like Cyclo possible.
It's a perfect example of how the right technology can unlock a whole new world of possibilities.
Well said. I think we've explored every nook and cranny of Cyclo, from its technical intricacies to its potential impact on the future of finance.
We've given our listener all the tools they need to understand this groundbreaking protocol. Now it's up to them to decide how they want to use it.
But before we set them loose on the world of DeFi, I think it's worth leaving them with one final thought to ponder.
We've talked a lot about the mechanics of Cyclo and how it can potentially help people enhance their returns.
hmm
But it also raises a deeper question. What does leverage really mean in a decentralized world?
Oh,
Is it just about amplifying gains, or is there something more profound at play?
ooh, that's a great question to leave our listener with. There's no right or wrong answer. It's all about perspective.
And as the DeFi landscape continues to evolve at lightning speed, I encourage the listener to stay curious and keep exploring. There are always new innovations just around the corner.
Well said. That's all for this deep dive. Happy exploring listener.